All right. Hello, everyone. We're going to give people just a minute to kind of settle in. Let us know who you are in the chat, in the YouTube chat, and then we will get started. Cool. Okay, well, let's get started. I'm Liz from Course Report. Course Report is a resource for students who are choosing a coding bootcamp. And we are here today to talk about what is going on with AI in bootcamps. Not only what the job market is looking like right now, but also how AI is being taught in the classroom and even used as a tool to teach more effectively.
And I'm Jess. I'm the content manager here at Course Report. And we're so happy to welcome you to this panel and also welcome to all of our panelists today. They're from all over the bootcamp world, and I'm sure thinking every day about how to teach the latest technology like machine learning and AI at bootcamps.
Yeah, so let's jump right in and introduce everyone because we've got 5 great panelists today. We have Kara Sassy, who is the Chief Product Officer at Springboard. We have Matt Brems, who is the Principal Data Scientist at Data Robot and also Distinguished Faculty in Data Science at General Assembly. Hey, Kara and Matt.
We have Giovanni Di Federici, who is the VP of Education at Flatiron School. John Kokos, who is the Director of Curriculum at Code Fellows, and Josh Tuchalski, who is the VP of Instruction at Tech Elevator. So welcome, Giovanni, John, and Josh.
All right, so as you can see, we've got some heavy hitters on the panel who are all kind of defining how AI and machine learning are being taught at their respective schools. So I'm super excited to hear their answers to all the questions that you asked when you RSVP'd. And we'll talk about all of those.
Yeah, so and if you asked a question when you registered for this event, we'll pass those on to our panel and we'll continue to take your questions. So be sure to use that Q&A feature on YouTube Live throughout this live panel.
Yeah, that's the chat like in the right-hand side of your screen if you're watching on YouTube. And just to get everyone thinking, tell us in the chat, Jess and I'll ask a couple questions just to get people's brains running. Where are you in the bootcamp research process? We'd love to know if you're already considering one of the bootcamps represented on this panel. Maybe you've already applied. Where are you at?
Yeah, and you can also tell us on a scale of like 1 to 10, like how confident do you feel that you actually understand AI and how AI is working today?
And then finally, I'm excited for this question. I want to know right now, does the rise in AI and all the AI in the headlines make you more excited to change careers into tech or more apprehensive? How are you feeling there? I want to see all the answers to your questions in the chat, and obviously feel free to continue to ask questions throughout, but I think we can hop right in because we've got so many good questions and RSVPs. So a lot of you asked questions about like what AI actually is, especially in the context of careers and the job market right now. So I think that's a great place to start. Simon and a few other folks asked, do you consider AI a buzzword? Is it really about the skills related to AI? And John, I think that, let's start with that macro question. The term AI might be what's in the headlines, but what are the actual skills that we're talking about here?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for having me as part of the panel and my fellow panelists. It's an honor to be with y'all. This is going to be really cool. There's like you said, a lot of heavy hitters here. And this question is interesting because absolutely AI is a buzzword. And when you said media, everybody goes, oh my God, the media, right? They make everything, a 10,000-pound gorilla. And it's not. AI is, at this point at least, AI is a great sidekick, right? It does a lot of, if you think about the way I define this for folks, it's like when we talk about chatbots specifically, it's a better Google, right? It's ingested the entire internet and it's made it easy for us to work with it instead of fighting through it. And I think when you talk about what skills it takes to work in the world of AI, from a coding standpoint, even from a cybersecurity standpoint, it makes I think working with AIs make you a better person. If you think about it, when you engage with a chatbot or you engage with a co-pilot as you're coding, you have to think a little bit differently. You can't just put yourself in the silo and go, oh my God, I'm stuck on this problem and I'm going to be here for 6 hours. Now you've got a way to get help. And I think that the skills that we build and the skills that it takes to work with and through AI become human skills. How do you query this machine to get the information you need? How do you frame your question? And how do you actually make follow-up questions? You know, as an interviewer, the secret to getting more out of your person is following up. And AI is great at what Google is really terrible at, which is, hey, I need help with X. And it gives you some response and you go, well, that part's really cool, but I don't understand number 3. Can you, and it dives into that. And you can take it down a rabbit hole with you, which is really cool. I think those are the skills that I look at our students, especially leveling up on. It's like they're actually becoming better interviewers, and you're interviewing the AI as you're going through, and they're also learning what they need, what they don't need. So you get this sort of built-in filtering when you get generated code, for example, from an AI. At first, you're like, thanks for all the code, my work is done. And as an educator, I was like, oh God, they're all going to cheat. And then you go, no, wait a minute. They're actually getting not great code from AI, and they have to suss through it, and they become better at knowing what's good and what's bad. It's this whole garbage in, garbage out thing that we used to talk about when we were all younger. It's real now. You're getting garbage, and you have to kind of separate some of that, the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. And I think that's leveling people up too. So AI, I think, has enhanced people's ability to critically think and analyze what they're seeing. And as coders, it's making them way better in terms of efficiency, speed, saving money for the companies, because they're getting assistance in the mundane so they can focus on the bigger picture. And I think I look at the auto industry. I used to work in the auto industry. We make better cars now than we did 15, 20 years ago when the robots came and took all the jobs. Remember that? The robots came, took all the jobs in the auto industry. What happened? Everybody got upskilled, reskilled, and they're moved around the companies, and we're making better cars because people can think and robots can do. I think that's where I see AI. And I know that the data scientists in the group will say there's a little more to it than that. But at the baseline, I think folks are a little nervous, and the media kind of feeds some of that. But yeah, there are some big time skills to be learned here. And I think as we level up as instructors, as schools, and hopefully as students, that skill set's going to make you so much better, so much quicker. I'm actually really excited about it. And that's a big turn for me. I'm an old guy. I'm scared of the Terminator. And when I first heard this, I was like, oh no, it's going to happen. But guess what? It's really, really awesome what we've seen people, how they've leveled up their personal skills as well as their coding skills.
So one way of thinking about AI is as this kind of like assistance tool or something that is like assisting developers and other engineers in being better. But if you want to work in AI, like you're not learning AI, right? This is kind of an umbrella term, right? So are there like more foundational skills that we're really talking about when we see like AI jobs? Like what are those kind of foundational?
Oh, sure. And I think you might want to go to Matt here on this question too, because when you think about,
Matt, do you want to?
Because data science is where it's at, right? To build an AI, you need to understand connective tissue between data and the way we construct algorithms, right? As coders, that's what we live and thrive on. But at the end of the day, an algorithm's nice. The data behind that and how we teach the algorithm how to use the data that it's got is where it's at. The big shift we're seeing on the coding side is into that level right there. We used to argue in data science about how many masters and bachelor or how many doctorates you had to get into the field. Now I think that's changing. Matt, you can kind of weigh in there a little bit.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to actually building the AI and thinking about learning AI and things like that, data science really closely aligns with that, where in terms of many of those skills that you are learning about, whether it's statistics, whether it's machine learning, a lot of these things are different brandings of very similar concepts and ideas. And so I would say that folks who embark on a boot camp in data science or who are taking a statistics course may not be learning all of the skills needed to build out your own generative AI chatbot, but you are learning AI. You can think of AI as this really big field of things. And so I think that most of the people who go through a bootcamp program, especially in data science, but even in things like web development and software engineering, will probably get some exposure to building some of those individual pieces.
We got a great question from Brian, and Brian asked, what area of AI should I invest in to best position myself on the market for jobs as a developer? I feel like this is a question a lot of developers are asking these days. Why don't we have Josh kick that one off?
Yeah, so I think if you're entering the market just to become a software developer, a web developer, full stack developer, there's kind of two aspects that you should look at this as. One is, do I have the foundational understanding of programming related to be able to even begin leveraging these tools? And so for starters, if you're entering a boot camp that's going to teach you Java or Python or .NET, really emphasize on how much you're learning in those fundamental concepts, because you need to be able to work independently of these tools to make sure that you can understand what it's going to be sharing back with you or suggesting that you do. So really try and extract yourself from any type of dependency on those tools. But then as you're thinking about, well, okay, where can I begin to leverage AI to improve my confidence or competency as a developer, there's really two categories too, which is one, a lot of the conversational based AI. So these are the chatbots, these are like ChatGPT, and this is ways in which you're going to have some dialogue about a technical question or an implementation to a problem. And then another aspect of it is going to be more of the co-pilots that I'm going to describe a problem and I'm going to review a number of different suggestions that are going to hopefully meet my criteria. And the reason that you want to lean into these as a developer is that these will become tools in your tool belt. You are going to want to be comfortable working with them because they're going to improve your productivity, your competency as well. And if you don't necessarily know how to engage with them, it's going to come off as something that you're either scared of or really not sure how to wield something so powerful as well. And so I think there will be skills that you'll have to develop to work with it, but starting first here with just trying to find ways to learn how to interact with them and leverage them to perform various technical related tasks will help you start to see some of those possibilities and then give you more reason to reach for them when you encounter a more difficult problem. So
really focusing on being fundamentally a good foundational engineer before kind of relying, especially when you're first learning, before relying on those tools. I think that's great advice, especially for future students, right? Well, we touched a little bit on this before, but a couple of people asked this question. Matt, maybe you can take this one. Gina asked, do you foresee AI being used by most to do the routine tasks of most industries? Or do you think it'll be more of a tool to boost productivity instead of one that many fear will take away jobs? Obviously, there's headlines about both of those scenarios, but what do you predict if you had a crystal ball?
Yeah, so there's a few different parts to this. I think that the way that I describe is, I guess I'll start by focusing on generative AI, which I think is taking the world by storm, and everybody's really interested in generative AI and kind of scared of it and trying to say well, what is it? What's it actually doing? How well do I need to know it? Think back to when you started learning how to use a search engine. Now, most people use Google, but whether it was Bing, Ask Jeeves, something like that. I remember when I was first exposed to a search engine sometime in middle school, there was a Pepsi commercial that was on, and I really liked the song in the background of the Pepsi commercial. It was with Eva Longoria, and the song went something like do 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 do. And so I tried to look up what this was. So I went to Google or Ask Jeeves or whatever it was at the time and tried to search for this. And I literally typed in Pepsi, do. And probably unsurprisingly, that didn't get me the result that I wanted. So over time, I learned how to better search using search engines and better find the information that I want on Google and other places. Now, that was never something that I specifically set out to do, but over time and over the years that have gone by, I've gotten, I'd like to say, pretty good at using Google to find the information that I'm looking for. I would say that that pretty closely parallels generative AI in a lot of ways. So people hear things like ChatGPT, and they might play around with it a little bit, put in questions from like an advanced placement exam and see what comes out, or ask for a recipe and see what's spit out, and get really impressed by that. The reason that I bring this up is if you look at most job descriptions today, you probably don't see on these job descriptions that a prerequisite is knowing how to Google something. But it's probably a pretty critical skill for most jobs, especially in tech. And that if you don't know how to Google something, that doesn't mean that you can't be successful, but it's going to be way, 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 way harder to be successful at that thing. And I think that understanding and learning more about generative AI, not necessarily the nuts and bolts of it, but getting good at using it to boost your productivity is going to be really, really important for a lot of people, especially in the tech world, but even beyond the tech world. For example, it's not just people in tech who probably rely on Google multiple times a day, every day for the work that they do. Now, I can understand the fear of losing your job or being automated out of work because of certain things. And I think that there's a little bit of validity to that. But I would say, and I think this is related to what John was saying earlier, it's probably going to be more of a reallocation or a shuffling of people. We will probably see that there are certain industries or certain jobs that may not be as necessary, but that doesn't necessarily mean that people will be out of work permanently. It's that there are new jobs that are needed. For example, before the invention of the airplane, we didn't need people to build airports. We didn't need pilots. We didn't need people to staff all of the restaurants and kiosks and everything inside of an airport. But because of the invention of an airport, which probably did put some people out of work in certain ways, also opened up totally new jobs. So that's a really long-winded way of saying, I think that with AI, there is probably going to be a shift in some of the jobs that are needed. And this is why I was educated in a liberal arts environment when I went to college. I think that understanding how to think is so critically important, and how to communicate and how to read and how to write is so important, because there are so many jobs that you will probably have over your career that literally might not exist yet. And so being able to develop skills like critical thinking, logic, all of that is going to be so helpful to being able to tackle whatever jobs come your way, even if those don't exist yet. The last thing that I'll say is I do think we're going to see people be able to leverage this to boost their productivity. I've recently used generative AI to help me start off writing a recommendation letter for somebody. My husband and I had a bottle of very sweet wine that we didn't really know what to do with. We didn't want to get rid of it, but we're not particularly sweet wine drinkers. So I used ChatGPT to say, hey, these are the types of drinks we like. What are some cocktails that might work well with sweet wine, and how can we use it? There's going to be a lot of different ways that people can use AI, not just generative AI, to increase their productivity. And a lot of that's about that creativity and thinking and saying, hey, what are interesting ways that I can leverage this and harness this to make my life better and maybe be more productive in the meantime?
So many great insights there, Matt. I love how you talked about liberal arts and critical thinking are still going to be very, very important in these future roles. So Rick kind of dives in a little deeper with a job market question. He asked, how has the recent job market changed for software engineers that want to transition into the AI space? So Kara, are the only job opportunities right now in AI, or do you see this like correcting itself a bit in the next like 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I think, and I'm sure all of us would agree, there's a lot of job opportunities, right, in AI. And I think there's a lot of data coming out talking about what the future is going to look like across any categories, from big data to machine learning to IT. I think World Economic Forum said there might be 100 million new jobs, right, over the next 2 to 4 years. But I think what Matt touched on a little bit, it's a really big umbrella, right? It's a vast field, directly thinking about getting into that field from a technical perspective. But I think, contrary, I think, to common belief, AI, it's not just limited to the technical profiles too. I think that's what's getting kind of really interesting. And you talked, Matt, about some of the softer skills and being able to synthesize and make recommendations. And so I think it's not necessarily a correction, but I think what's happening is those skill pockets that are starting to be needed, the AI intersection into different fields is creating non-technical roles. So if you're on, if people here are thinking about switching into the technical part, there's also a bigger window, right, around roles like AI business analyst or conversation designers, if you're thinking about UI UX, which is a boot camp that Springboard offers. And so really, really great for mid-career professionals who want to think, am I right for the technical space? But maybe not, right? And there's a bigger umbrella to explore. And I think that's what's kind of shifting, turning around, correcting itself. People are, as they're adopting tools, right? Like Matt and John and other folks talked about, there's skills that come with that capabilities and or role adjustments, right? Tasks may change in roles and start creating new roles. So I think that's really exciting. So it's not just the technical, it's the non-technical as well. But yes, there's going to be lots of need for AI engineers, data scientists. And I think future roles, people have talked about ethics, right? And people that are going to focus, if people have been around from the beginning, of the internet boom, I'm dating myself, in the 90s, but new roles started to appear around privacy. And I think that's also going to evolve. So interesting enough, attorneys, right, will have opportunities to evolve their roles as well. So yeah, I think, and for anyone's worried maybe about, what's the future of software engineering, I think it's still projected to grow like 30 to 40%. So there's still tons of jobs and those base skills that Matt said you have to kind of know, but it's going to shift with the amount of other softer skills that are going to be needed to maximize these tools and have them be as impactful in the role that you're going, and how to be more competitive, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit, some of those differing skills. So.
Thanks so much, Kara. Giovanni, Kara mentioned a couple of these new roles that we might expect to see, or job titles. At Flatiron School, what kinds of AI job roles, job titles are you seeing students land already after they graduate? Or maybe even the ones that you expect will be most popular in the coming months? I think Jess and I just interviewed someone from a graduate of Flatiron who's working as an AI engineer at IBM. That's kind of a classic job title, right? AI engineer. But what are you seeing already, and what do you think will happen?
But we see similar. We place people as data analysts, business intelligence analysts, data scientists, AI engineers, ML engineers, things like that. I think it's important to kind of go back to what some of the previous panelists were saying, which is that there's kind of an ocean of things to do in AI. What people are talking about now is Gen AI, and that's a sort of nascent or emerging technology. And so it will be difficult to know exactly what those roles will be until companies and hiring partners and people like that manage to figure out how to incorporate those into business solutions. But broadly speaking, I agree that some of the skills necessary, these tools will kind of be the next Google of, the internet, where everyone has access to it. But a lot of the stuff will soon be integrated directly into the products that everybody's using, whether or not they're practitioners or the general public. And so I would say that most of the skills for our non-data science students revolve around interfacing with the existing set of tools, understanding what solutions they work for and what they don't work for. Because everybody thinks that Gen AI is going to sort of solve all of the problems, but it's absolutely not. And there's a massive buzz around it currently that we're riding sort of a wave of interest from the general public and companies. That will die down. I think it'll quiet down a little bit as people realize what it doesn't work for. And so the jobs will spring up around NLP, large language models, in the actual business cases in which they make the most sense. But all of the foundational skills for data scientists, whether it's data engineering or ML engineering, those are still powerful toolkits for anyone in this field to have. So if you want to be a software engineer, learning at least the basics of understanding what these tools can do for you and what they can't do for you, and what are easily accessible, because a lot of these tools and practices are not super easily accessible, but Gen AI is very accessible for everyone right now. So I think that's kind of the buzziest part of it. But I would agree, we're seeing a lot of this, the conversational engineering, things like that are springing up, although we haven't seen as many of those sort of land as roles that are clearly established. It's more like skill sets that people need to develop.
I think that's such a good point when we think about like, what will it mean to work in AI in the future? Maybe that means that you're incorporating some, generative AI into your current job. Maybe it means that you're working as a business analyst or a machine learning engineer, or a job that has actually existed for the last 5 to 10 years, but is kind of evolving. I think it can get tough when we see a headline. I think of the one that's like, this $900,000 salary AI engineer role, but really these are jobs that have already existed, are evolving. We'll have new technology incorporated into them, as we are so used to in technology already. So fantastic. Okay, well, let's move on to how AI is being incorporated into your boot camps a little bit. We got a couple of similar questions, one from Anoma, who asked if boot camps would be differentiating their AI curriculum from their existing data science or software engineering boot camps. Could everyone just take a second to answer this question? How exactly are your schools incorporating AI? Are you adding AI to an existing boot camp? Are you launching a brand new AI boot camp? How are y'all approaching it?
I guess I'll start. We're a dual thread boot camp. So we teach software engineering and largely focused on the web development side of that, as well as a whole cybersecurity program. So how do we integrate AI into our school? I think it's been talked about before. We're trying to help our students use it right now as a co-pilot, largely for the software engineers. I think that the point that I think was Matt made this point about the search engines. Remember the search engine boom? Like I remember back in the 90s too, when this guy, my boss in the 90s said, hey, I think this internet thing might take off. Can somebody build us a website? That's how old I am, okay? And in those days, there were 700 search engines and we were all trying to figure out what's gonna happen and how do you use it? And it came down to Google and Bing, ultimately. Actually, it was Google for a long time. That's where we are today. AI right now is that. Even though we've been using AI for years without knowing it, a lot of us, we're there. And it's like, oh God, we have this new thing. What do we do with that? We teach and we focus a lot on how to be efficient with it. I want my students to be able to, right now in a code editor, you open up a curly brace and it closes it for you, and that's magical. AI now can finish your thought for you, which is even more magical, right? It removes us from making bugs in most cases. It saves you time of typing. And when you're making $100 an hour or more, that's money. Those keystrokes are money. The bugs that you're not making are money. The what tests do I need to write question, where all students, if you teach TDD at all, they don't like writing tests because they're hard to write. They never know what tests to write. This is where generative AI helps us out a lot. Given this chunk of code, what should I be testing, Mr. Chatbot? And it comes back with here, and I say, well, why do I want to test that? Or why is that important? Get more information. That's how we use AI at our school. We're teaching them to be more productive with their new rubber duck, so to speak. And I want them to be boss level with the skills so that when this becomes your DNA, which it will be in a year, the students are ready to just rock and roll with this new piece of DNA as part of their day-to-day. That's, I think, the biggest thing on the code side. On the cybersecurity side, whole different ballgame. Because now we're doing red team, blue team interactions with AI fighting against us. And we're actually able to use AI tools to hone our skills on the cyber side, which is really, really cool. You can do things like that you couldn't do a year ago. You'd have to have another person and you're dependent on that person's skills to test your skills and level yourself up. Iron sharpens iron. Now you've got gold sharpening iron, which is really, really cool. I think that's where it's headed. And we want our students to be using the tools like professionals and have it just be like, I don't want to be teaching it next year. Like I want them to just be using it by second nature next year. And then we can talk about, okay, how do we actually turn that into apps and code and things that make other people's lives better? And that's the next level thing. So that's, I think, from my standpoint, it's all about making that part of your core skill set.
That's cool. That's really cool in cybersecurity, using it as kind of the black hat there. Kara, how about at Springboard? How are y'all incorporating?
Yeah, no, I think probably a lot of us are going to have some similar themes on, I think, John, as you noted, just incorporating it into the overall experience in terms of just building up a muscle, right? And so that's, I think depending on the topic in the bootcamp, and we span cyber as well and coding, and we also have design and getting into tech sales, right? What we've also decided to do is make sure there's a base equity across just, especially with generative AI, just literacy, right, around it, and sort of incorporating that more around some learning objectives, and then applying that exactly like to the projects and assignments, right, and starting to kind of build up that muscle and use case and application. So that's something we've didn't need to do in some of our courses because, you know, machine learning, we were already doing some of that, but we're just continuing to refine and augment. But I think what's interesting too is part of our overall bootcamp is also job placement. And so we've also really started to boost literacy around that as well, right? Using the tools to figure out how to amp up cover letters and writing and content generation and those things that are outside of kind of the skill set, right, that you developed, but then the intersection fully through the experience, right? From the learning to the application to also that readiness, right? And really starting to build that, I think, has been really powerful for us. And we're just seeing a really hungry appetite. I think we launched a webinar, I think last week, just to talk about how to supercharge your job search with AI. And we had almost 1,000 people register. You know, that's a large body of people, right? And not even in our cohorts. So yeah, I think that's we're doing it on the learning side. We're doing it on the job placement, kind of our services and career outcome side as well. And then we're looking at how we productize, use AI in our own product and our own technology to help students more.
Amazing. Matt, how about at General Assembly? Is anybody actually, I want everyone to answer this question, but is anyone schools launching like an AI boot camp? I'm assuming maybe not right now, but maybe in the future. Okay. But currently it's really incorporating those skills into the current curriculum. Matt, what's going on at GA?
Yeah, so there's new product offerings that are under development. We are integrating Gen AI specifically, as well as AI more broadly, into all of our existing product offerings, both on the tech side, the Python programming, data science, software engineering side, as well as those roles that are, I guess, tech adjacent, but like the user experience design, product management, where everybody will get some sort of base fundamental understanding of what is generative AI, how can it best be used in your day-to-day work, whether you're a designer, product manager, something like that. And then there's also, as Kara said, on the instruction side, there's a lot that we're developing, and the student side, as John was talking about, getting folks to get more of those reps, more of that practice with using Gen AI on a day-to-day basis, just like they will in the actual job setting.
And Giovanni, at Flatiron School.
Yeah, so we our data science program covers topics like scientific computing and data engineering and things like that for about the first half, and the second half is all machine learning. So we're working on integrating a lot of the emergent technology into our existing program. So there's no horizon for a long form exclusively AI program, but we feel strongly that we cover the bulk of it in the back half of our program. So we feel good there. We've also developed a handful of small form programs in the short term so that people have something that they can access immediately. But in terms of the student experience, how they're integrating it, we've done some of the same things as other folks have said here. We have an ethical statement around how to use it and literacy around what it's good for and not good for. Each of our programs, because we have data science, cybersecurity, software engineering, and product design. So each of those programs have been updated to include, where appropriate, Gen AI and sort of AI topics in things like projects. Our product design program, the projects have multiple steps, very similar to our normal production environment. So we've kind of identified where there's some key areas that make sense for them. And then as a company, we're sort of interrogating the entire student journey, similar to what Kara said on, career services and what Matt said about the student experience. But our focus is just to find what areas of the student experience make the most sense. So we prototyped a lot of internal products, and we actually just launched a beta. We have a AI tutor that we've integrated into our LMS called Ada. And so we're betaing that with students right now and gathering data about its efficacy. And it's sort of a third pillar to our support system. We have our instructional staff. And then in addition to that, we have an after hours tech coaching staff that can help people. And then this is sort of a third pillar for those additional hours or people that are working independently. So we're sort of testing the efficacy of different solutions right now.
And thanks for pointing out in the beginning of your answer, Giovanni, that most of the boot camps here have offered a data science, taught a data science boot camp, maybe data science and machine learning boot camp for a long time. I definitely have taught software engineering. And so there are plenty of people, because Jess and I talk to these people all the time, who started, who took those types of courses and now are working in AI or, building those machine learning tools, or, doing not just using generative AI on the job, but also like building the tools that we're all using. So just want to kind of point that out, that maybe if you're watching this as you're doing your research, you're like, I don't see an AI boot camp. How will I ever become an AI engineer? But it's those data science, software engineering, machine learning boot camps. Those are the ones you're probably looking for right now until we see them kind of evolve into being called AI boot camps. Josh, do you want to just finish up this question with how Tech Elevator is thinking about it? I know you've got a thunderstorm behind you, so.
Yeah. I'll be real quick, because I mean, a lot of the same answers that have been said are things that we've also begun to approach. But one way that it'll be used on the job a lot for software developers is when they have to learn new frameworks or new languages, they'll often use it to help them adapt. And so there's ways to weave things like that into the curriculum when they learn their second or third language. For example, they start by learning Java at Tech Elevator and later learn JavaScript. By then, there's a strong foundation already developed, and there's opportunities to take and help you translate from one language to the next, or to help you critique code that you might have felt comfortable writing in one language and provide some suggestions or feedback. And so we're using that as a way to help them become more comfortable using that tool, so that they'll realize the value that will serve them on their professional career as well.
Love that. So we'd love to talk a little bit about career changes. We definitely had a few RSVPs asking. So Michael, Elise, and Zoe, they all had questions about anyone who's interested in learning and working as an AI engineer, especially if they come from a different type of background, maybe like sales or design, or someone who's making a career change later in their life, in their 40s or 50s. How much experience do they actually need to work as an AI engineer? So Matt, I'd love to know, what does the AI engineer's career path actually look like? And realistically, can someone learn what they need to know in a 3-month boot camp to start an AI engineering career, basically by the end of this year?
The brief answer is yes. You can learn enough in a 3-month boot camp to be able to move into a new job that has some component of AI engineering in it, if not an AI engineering role. I think that it makes sense for us to recognize that there are so many different things that include AI engineer. Or if you ask somebody, if you asked all of us on this call, describe an AI engineering job, many of us would come up with different job titles and descriptions and things like that. If you look at what companies have, their job responsibilities and qualifications and everything are going to be different. So that term, AI engineer, means very different things to very different people. And it's this, Carrie used the term umbrella earlier. It's this big umbrella that can encompass so many different things like business analysts, data engineers, machine learning engineers, data scientists, software engineers. There's so many different things that can go under this massive umbrella of things. So yes, it is possible to get one of those jobs after a 3-month boot camp. Now, there's a couple of different pieces to that I want to call out. So there's people who come from specific backgrounds. So I think in the chat, Ofer, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, but mentioned something about could AI help people in other roles use software development or maybe AI as part of their jobs, like biz development or marketing? Yes. And if you wanted to change your job there is certainly the, depending on your company and what you're looking for, there's the ability to leverage that in your current job or in a future job. So if you say, hey, I've got a marketing background or I have a sales background, but what I want to do is I want to leverage this and my data science knowledge or my software engineering knowledge or my AI knowledge, there are roles out there for you to be able to do that. And I think that a 3-month boot camp can help you not just pivot your career. It will help you pivot your career if that's what you want. But if you want to build on your existing career and the skills that you have, a 3-month bootcamp can be uniquely qualified to help you do that. It doesn't require doing a full 1-year, 2-year, 4-year degree program or anything like that. But you can leverage the 5, 10, 20 years of experience that you have under your belt and say, I don't want to throw all of my sales knowledge or marketing knowledge away, but I want to combine my knowledge of sales with an understanding of data science. And I want to use that to be a sales engineer at an organization and help sell data science or machine learning or software development products, or sell to data scientists or software engineers or AI engineers. So the world is largely your oyster, and you can really be creative here in terms of what it is that you want to do, even if that title of AI engineer or that title of data scientist isn't necessarily it. I also want to make sure to call out that you, whether it's sales or marketing or whatever your background is, it is also possible, if you're thinking of this as a second act or a third act where you are later in your career and you say, hey, I'm in my 40s, I'm in my 50s, I do want to make a pivot. I want to acknowledge that there's a lot of ageism in tech. There's a lot of other isms in tech, sexism, racism, all sorts of things that it's really important to call out. And I don't want to pretend like those things don't exist. And boot camps can help you figure out what are the most important things for you to learn to help get you into that next role that you want. So if you say, I've got 20 years or 30 years experience with this thing, and I want to supplement that with data science, you can work with career coaches or outcomes professionals at many of these boot camps who can help tailor that job search to integrate what you know and all of the experiences that you have with that new technical knowledge that help you get to where you want to be. So there's a lot of opportunity there, and a 3-month bootcamp can absolutely be helpful as a good step toward being able to get that. You may not be able to go from, I have no technical background and I want to become a chief data officer in 3 months, but there's so many things that you are going to be able to do with that intensive 12-week boot camp that can help you get to where you want to go without sacrificing the background or the experience that you have.
That is such good advice. I think sometimes the headlines that say like all the jobs are in AI can be like a little paralyzing to someone who is not working in tech or not working in AI. But you can take these smaller steps. It's not just like tomorrow you have to become an AI engineer in order to have a job next year. Giovanni, I like this next question. Jeff asked, what should students look for in an AI or machine learning curriculum or instruction when they're considering a boot camp? Some of the most successful alumni that Jess and I have talked to had somebody that they knew like look at a boot camp's curriculum before they actually committed. Not everyone has access to that type of person in their life, but what should somebody look for in a solid AI machine learning curriculum? That just like learn Python, you'll be good, or what else should go in there?
Well, I think you need strong foundations in general data science. So scientific computing, does it cover linear algebra, data analysis, engineering, things like that. Just give you the strong foundation and then a clear description of the machine learning that'll be covered, because machine learning in itself is massive. So, having a clear spectrum of topics like learning methods, NLP, deep learning, machine learning fundamentals, Gen AI, stuff like that. A lot of programs you see out there can get kind of buzzy. So it's hard to know exactly. So I would say definitely dig into the curriculum, but you need strong foundations and then a clear direction. Because some programs can cover 1 million topics and not really get you very far. So a clear learning path, I think, is really huge. I'd also say if you're going to go with a school, look for one that has a proven track record, in placing data science students, because the career services element of it is arguably just as important as the educational side of it. So I would say that's a big thing to look at, inquire about the career services. And from an instructional standpoint, you should ask about what is their approach to instruction. Do they scaffold topics well? Do they provide projects that make sense for the real world and that employers are looking for? And do you have adequate face time with the instructor? That's huge. I think that's huge. Do they have support systems that make sense? So those are the things that I would look for if I were going to start a boot camp. Does it have the curriculum that leads to a job? Is there a structure in place to help me kind of take that first step? Because it's very difficult for a lot of people. And does it have adequate support systems built into it so that you can find success?
Super helpful. And I would say all of the boot camps that are on this panel, if you're watching this, do a great job of that. And one of the main topics, data science, machine learning, or software engineering. So fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
Jess, you would ask this last question, and then we'll
yeah.
So
Josh,
these.
yeah, I know. So Josh, we'd like to point this question to you. Joy asked, if AI can replace some skill sets, will you continue teaching those skills or replace those skills with AI related skills? So what is Tech Elevator's course doing?
Right. So I think one of the comments earlier that, humans are about solving problems is a really important one to identify. So one important skill that doesn't get listed in any curriculum is just the idea of problem decomposition. I have this really big problem in front of me, this white paper of a screen. What do I do and how do I solve it? And AI can help you with that, but that is an important skill that one needs to develop and iterate and refine over time. As you're going through that, whether you're talking with an instructor, a peer, or an AI assistant, you're going to learn skills that come with communication, being very specific in what you're trying to convey, not being ambiguous, and you're trying to get more specific to parts of code that you're trying to understand or modify. Those are soft skills that are important to anyone as a programmer, and being able to even articulate and say them. I think the last skill that is really important, AI or no AI, really is how to be attentive to detail and know how to question the things that are in front of you. So we all kind of have this challenge of, you get asked if there's any questions and you don't know what to ask. And it becomes even easier to not ask any questions when something like ChatGPT spins up an entire essay with a bunch of code blocks solving your problem. And your challenge here as a programmer is going to be to just pull back that cover a little bit and try and understand the solution, try and understand how well it fits into your situation, and make sure it solves your problem before you blindly accept it and move forward. And whether that's AI doing that, whether that's a team member who's submitting code to you for you to review doing that, or even yourself reviewing something you did yesterday, it's an important skill to always make sure that you develop and hone in on and never kind of pass up.
Awesome. And John, as a curriculum developer at Code Fellows, what's your take on this?
Well, I think we're hitting all the exact points. And I think when you design a curriculum for AI and a student comes through, I think it comes down to familiarity with the tools. And I think we got to reiterate the human piece of this thing, like you just did. I think that's so important, because you cannot just rely on this thing to be magical for you and say, here's the answer. Somebody asked in chat about, what do you do with students who quote unquote cheat and get the answer, right? As a curriculum developer, I have to deal with that all the time. Like, I craft assignments that can be cheated, right? Now you can cheat it. And what I remind students is this, and I think your point is perfect here. You've got to be a better human, right? And ultimately, given this lab assignment, you can paste the entire thing in. How do I solve the problem? And you'll get 90% of the answer, and you paste it in. And I'm like, good for you. You got the right answer, but can you do that? Is that going to get you your job and have you keep your job? And I think by leveling up the human skills, and I think really being a detective and saying, what did I get? Did what I get was good, right? Was that useful to me? And it does actually solve the problem. I think the idea of teaching, and we're doing much more of this, teaching more hardcore computational thinking, going deeper in data structures and algorithms, so that students can not only assess what they see, but also become the problem solvers. AI looks like it solves problems, but it actually doesn't. It's just giving you regurgitated answers in a way that you can understand for the most part, at least in these early stages. We still solve the problems, and I want to free our students to solve the problems. I'm more interested in giving them an assignment that seems really hard and seeing how would they break that assignment down into steps. And if AI solves a step for you, good. That's actually really good. But I want to see you as a person break down the steps. And those are the things that we strive for in sort of making students become better thinkers. And I think ultimately, this is going to make people better thinkers. And that's why I'm so excited about it. I admittedly was a little nervous in the beginning, going, wow, how are we going to integrate this in? And I was worried about the cheating and the plagiarism and ultimately it's probably a good thing, and if you get the answer, that's great. What did the answer mean? Can you tell me, can you explain to my 5-year-old what that answer means? And if you can't, let's go back and do that again. I think that's what we're looking at. I think that's ultimately a career changer. And I think it was Matt that said this, and I want to hammer on your point, Matt. You described the unicorn earlier, right? An adult career changer who's got 20 years of experience or 10 years of experience in other fields that comes into computer science, whether it be as a web developer or as a data analyst, has got this wealth of knowledge and wisdom that they're bringing into tech. Whether they become a coder or not is immaterial, right? Applying that knowledge with some tech knowledge and coming out of the end and saying, hey, now I'm a better PM, or I'm a better X, or I'm a better sales engineer. That's the unicorn. That's what we're looking for. And I think AI really helps us out there because it gives you another co-pilot in the world. And, if you're looking to develop AI or develop with AI, 2 different tracks, right? How can I use AI to make a new app, or how can I develop the underpinnings of AI? It's 2 totally different career tracks. And I think when you come in from whatever your old career was, one of those tracks may speak to you, and it's going to change the world. Look at the robot vacuum cleaner, right? Life-changing piece of technology, all AI-driven. Nobody knows about it. Somebody thought of that. Somebody's like, the typical program, I'm lazy. I don't want to get up off my rear end and vacuum the floor. Let me develop something so I can save 8 minutes, right? Let me spend $100 million, hire 50 people, and develop a tool that I can sell for $500 that saves me 8 minutes of walking. That's tech in a nutshell. And I think that's where AI is headed, hopefully.
I love that. We're just about to wrap up. We have like about 7 more minutes. So we'd love to ask a few questions about AI being used as a tool in the classroom, jump a little further in here. So Kara, you already touched on how AI is being used to improve student outcomes, but is there anything else you want to add there? Because we got a few questions revolving around that.
Yeah, no. So I think like a lot of the panelists, and John, I can feel your energy too around kind of the optimism on AI. I think just from the pure product lens and thinking about an online boot camp, you think about the people we're serving are typically adult learners and really busy and juggling a lot. We see so much opportunity with productizing and looking at how we can create more conversational elements. We already have mentors and coaches and human conversation going on, and of course, online learning as well, group learning, peer learning. But at its core, how can we look at creating more real-time feedback? I think that's one of the things we hear quite a bit, right? People are studying at very odd hours, right? They're getting stuck in different places, and just having that opportunity. I think Josh, or maybe Matt, you said it, whether you're building up those skills to have conversations, it could be with an AI bot, it could be with your instructor, right? But how you're engaging really matters. But we also want to be sure we're meeting every student where they are and building AI-driven capabilities in our digital learning experience, right? To give them that real-time feedback, assignments, quizzes, whatever it might be. So that's a big area we're prototyping and looking at within our learning experience. And then I think there's so much promise. And I think I've been in ed tech about 25 years. I was telling a few of the panelists, but personalization has always been really hard, right? Like it's been really, really hard to figure out how to pull off K-12, higher ed, non-traditional learning, in-person learning, you name it. And there's just so much more promise now. I think about the idea of how you can get down to really profiling through the algorithms and work in education and being able to recommend like, hey, you're stuck here and take a look at this, and really be able to have that engagement at a whole new level. And so that's something I think I'm excited about what a lot of companies are doing around that and starting to productize more. We want to leverage that more in the industry and help that. We really believe that will help retain, right? And help all the learners, whether it's 3-month, intensive, boot camp that Matt talked about, or maybe 6 and 9 months, right? Depending on the topics and what you're doing, or if you're building up your capabilities, but be able to personalize much more and make those recommendations going to be really important. So I think those are just going to really help students feel more confident, feel more supported, and get to the outcomes they're looking at throughout that, whether it's career placement, learning the mastery of the skills themselves. So that's going to be important for us in the future.
Fantastic. Well, thinking about the future, I just want to use the last 4 minutes of this Q&A to anyone should feel free to answer this last question. So BC asked, if you had a crystal ball, which of course we all wish we did, what do you think AI will look like in 5 years' time, and what impact will it have for the everyday Jane and everyday Joe public? Anyone want to pause it? Kara,
I'll take a crack.
Personalization, love that. Okay, Giovanni, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that most people don't realize that AI is already integrated into many of the things they're using. So all the tools you're using, when you see ads online, all that, there's something powering that. And the tools that have sort of emerged more recently have just brought all that to the surface. So I think that in 5 years, most companies will find solutions to create that more conversational, personalized experience that Kara was describing, not only in education, but more or less across the board. And that might be through personalized text generation, it might be through chatbots, it might be through any number of things, which will depend on sort of the sector or company. But I think that basically it will become another part of the background, just like it is now, but you'll have that very sort of conversational and direct interaction with it.
Great prediction. Anyone else, John?
I concur. I think in 5 years from now, who knows? I mean, but honestly, the things we take for granted today, like my robot vacuum cleaner, my Nest little temperature thing that makes the house always feel good to me, like your life's just going to get better and you're not going to know why. That's where AI is taking you. Like at the airport, that line's going to suck a whole lot less and you're not going to understand why. It's because the cameras got better at seeing what's in your bag. All of these things, but now the thing where you do this and it kind of tells if you're, whatever, that takes 3 seconds to get through. That's what's going to happen. In 5 years, Jane and Joe Public are going to just skate through life and have a lot of things that used to be a pain in the butt, not be a pain in the butt anymore. And I think, like I said, automatic temperature things, and your car drives itself now. Like now we're like, oh, wow, my car can park. Look at this. I can back up, right? That's a magical thing. And you see the commercial that, right? My car can like change a lane and not kill me. At some point, there won't even be a freaking steering wheel and you're not going to care. That's where it's going. And I think I cannot wait to turn 60 and see what y'all are doing. And I can just kick back and enjoy the fruits of your labor. That's what I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be fantastic in 5 years.
Well, we will undoubtedly need a lot of engineers and folks to guide that technology and define that product. So
unlimited jobs for sure.
Well, I think, that's a perfect place to wrap up. So I'll just say thank you so much for everyone who tuned in, and to all of our panelists. Cannot thank you enough for being here and answering all of these questions about AI and boot camps. Obviously, my main takeaway is that this is a huge topic, vast topic. So we're going to continue to dive deeper into some of these specific questions on the Course Report blog. And speaking of the blog, we will post this video on the Course Report blog and we'll send it to you in a follow-up email later today. So look out for that if you RSVP'd. What else? Courseware has scholarships available for General Assembly and Springboard and many other boot camps. So I'll include instructions to apply those. They take like 1 minute. And thank you so much for all of your questions, Ofer and Michael. Thanks so much for all of your questions in the chat. We're going to do more of these live Q&As next year and next quarter. So let us know in the comments or email us at hello@coursesupport.com to let us know if there's a specific topic that you want us to dive into. And we will see you on the next one.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.